So, Mike, welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. It's a great honor and privilege for me personally to have you on this podcast. We know Sarah Drage. Many people have listened to my podcast with her, and she's an amazing human being. And when she brought me to your attention, I looked at your story and I felt the same, mate. So thank you so much for coming on today as my guest.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very honored to be on, Dave. Thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure, mate, honestly. So you've probably listened to a few of my podcasts already, and we know that we wind it all the way back. So if you don't mind, I'd really love to know about how your growing up was, how that was for you and where you lived and all that stuff.
So I was born in Livingston, New Jersey, and grew up in Kearney, New Jersey, it's the town that I'm back living in now. And a normal kid. I went to Catholic school. My father was a construction worker, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and had a little sister and my grandmother who lived with us and helped us out with stuff. And I went to Catholic school, was an altar boy, and had a great upbringing in that aspect, you know, like a very modest growing up home environment. And I remember great memories as a kid. And I'd say maybe around 12, 13 years old, one thing that started to impact my life a lot was, you know, my father and his work life. He was a construction worker, but then ended up owning some businesses and was just never home. And that started to, I guess, you know, take a toll on me when I was younger at 13, finding my masculinity and stuff. And started to get into trouble, maybe to get attention, you know, things of that nature. But I had a great upbringing, you know, a great family, and not much that I can say too bad about my upbringing. I do remember at a lot of family parties, you know, one thing that was always big in my family was alcohol. You know, my father was a big drinker, but I've never seen my father really drunk, but he always drank, you know, probably daily. And my mother never drank, never had, would have one drink. She was a completely sober person. I've never even seen her have a beer in her hand my entire life. But yeah, that was like a normal thing growing up here in America in the 80s, you know, beer cans all over. My little sister used to run around and drink beer cans and stuff, but I hated alcohol. I never liked the taste of alcohol. Even as a teenager, I disliked that I used to go into the bathroom at parties and dump it out into the toilet because I felt the taste was just disgusting. I'm like, how can people drink this shit? I didn't enjoy it as a teenager very much. And I also knew my grandfather had passed from cirrhosis. I never got to meet him. It was on my mother's side. My grandfather passed, I believe, the year I was born, and he died in Brazil from liver failure, cirrhosis, all of that. Probably in a little bit of worse conditions than I was in. So yeah, me and my relationship with alcohol as a teenager, I just didn't enjoy it very much, even though how popular it was at that time.
Do you think that's why your mum didn't drink, because of her dad?
Definitely.
Yeah. Had that much of an impact. You can understand why as well.
Yep.
So when did you start drinking then?
Throughout my teenage years, I drank at parties here and there, but it didn't seem like it was an issue at that time, it was more like miscellaneous uh, drugs that teenagers experiment with, you know. I was having more fun with that stuff. But when alcohol started to become a problem, a serious problem, was I had a cousin of mine pass away, who was very much like a brother of mine. And we kind of grew up experimenting with things together, had went through a lot of similar traumas in our family together. Our families had issues getting along and a lot of toxic arguing and stuff like that. And me and him kind of uh, soaked in that as teenagers, you know. And he passed away from a drunk driving accident. And it was 3 blocks away from his house. Like 5 o'clock in the morning, the driver, he was in the passenger seat. There was the driver had overcompensated, thinking a vehicle was coming at him, and swerved to the right, jumped over the curb, and went right into a tree. And my cousin flew out, and it was just death on impact. And they had all been drinking and, you know, partying that night.
So how did you take that, mate?
Horribly. I think I had collapsed and fainted when I found out the news, you know. It was so unexpected. Me and him had done so many other dangerous things, you know, just experimenting and partying, crazy nights. I just never expected that to be the way for things to play out. And I took it bad. I coped with alcohol at that time. And
Yeah.
that was when I started drinking very, very heavily, and hard liquor too. Because, like I said, I didn't enjoy the taste of alcohol, so beer and things like that weren't, you know, good enough. They'd take too long, you know,
Yeah.
for me to get a buzz. I'm not trying to wait all day, so I would drink hard liquor. You know, vodka used to be my choice of drink, and that's when I started drinking heavily to kind of feel numb. And I did that for I'd say like 2 or 3 years after he passed, you know. I moped around drinking heavily. um I had a hobby doing music production at the time, and that's like kind of what just kept my head up just a little bit. And I just drank and drank and drank and drank. um Felt like I was gonna be dying from alcohol. I was young too. I want to say this was 2000, 2007, 2009, and I had met somebody, and the saving grace I think in my life at that time was I had a child. You know, I met someone, and she had gotten pregnant, and I had a baby boy that gave me new light, you know, in life, and sparked this new me that wanted to do better, and change myself. And I did that. When he was born, I'd say a little bit before he was born, but right, probably 3 months into the pregnancy, I gave up alcohol completely. And I had even went on a religious retreat back then to kind of see if something could spark, you know, some kind of hope. I felt so hopeless without my cousin. And that religious retreat was um, a very eye-opening experience. You're not supposed to bring cell phones or anything with you, and if you do, they take it from you. And I had, you know, such an issue back then with alcohol, as far as the withdrawal symptoms and stuff like that, that I couldn't go on the basis with not having alcohol. And I had been drinking up to the point of the day of the retreat. So I had actually brought vodka with me, you know, on my personal self where they couldn't find it, and got over there. And they took all my stuff, and I went to my room in this church retreat area, and I started drinking. My problem was I didn't bring enough,
Mm.
and this was Friday, midday Saturday, I ran out, and I was like starting to freak out, like, oh God, I'm gonna have to run out of here. And there's have no phones. We're in the middle of the woods.
Wow.
We didn't get to see our way there. So I didn't know where I was. And there was a priest there named Father Nuno. He was a great, great guy. And he saw I was in distress and pulled me to a confessional and sat down and talked with me. And I broke down and told him what I had done, that I had brought alcohol with me. I said, I feel like I got to go. And he calmed me down, and I ended up, breaking down to him and just letting a lot out. I let out so much, it helped out with my withdrawal.
Mm.
It soothed me, to let out all that emotion, and all the things I had been holding in for a while to him. And the next day, we all went back on a bus, and I kind of made like a vow that I was, gonna try my best to be the best father that I could be the best man I could be, stop drinking, and went back home and didn't drink anymore for about a year. No alcohol, and
Wow.
it was great. Like life was beautiful. I had a baby boy born. I had found my first like real job, which was in construction, doing drilling. And even though it was very low paying, I took so much pride in my work, because I had a son that was coming. So, and I'd say after that year, I got comfortable. It was like had the job, had financial control, stability, everything that somebody would ask for to have when having a son. And at that point was like, great, that's the perfect time for me to have a drink now. I'm like, let me relax.
Mm.
So I started, drinking, and on a weekend thing, it was on the weekends after a long week at work, and eventually very fast, it just became a coping mechanism again.
Mm.
I'd say then a year, 6 months, I was back to drinking, getting home from work, having drinks,
Mm.
daily, and going through little withdrawals here and there, like trying to juggle, balance all the anxiety and all the physical symptoms that come along with balance, and being drunk when you don't have to function away from work, and doing those things. And I coasted in life like that for about 5-6 years. I had another son, and alcohol was an issue, even in those 5-6 years, because it helped the relationship I was in become unstable, more arguing, anxiety between both people, just an unhappy, unstable environment of two people using a substance to kind of numb their daily problems, and just making a worse situation for themselves. And it just went like that, on and on and on. And with all the even with all those issues, I was still so lucky in life that I my drilling job, I'd got an opportunity to join the union, which is just such an amazing jump of professional experience in the work I was in out here. I had an opportunity to do that, and that changed my life, big time. It brought more stability, at least financially. As the more stability I had a little bit and some success in life, the more unstable some other aspects were
Yeah.
becoming. And from there, I got to buy my first home, which was an amazing thing for my family at the time. And same thing, coasted a couple more years like that, and it got to a point where the kind of life that I was living, which was never a party life. I was never a party guy. I was always a family man. Never out at the bar drinking. That was never my thing. I'd always be the type, I'd have 2-3 bottles delivered to my front door from the liquor store, but I was always drinking at home, barbecuing or doing little stuff like that. I became so introverted because of the drinking. I didn't even want to be out in public, really. I'd just be drinking at home and thinking I was decompressing all the time. And as I'd say that I got to like a nice little peak point where I felt comfortable with the success and the stability I had. At that point, I was like physically in distress. I'd gained so much weight. I was probably like 230 pounds. I was always tired, always moody, very irritable. I was a nasty person. I'd like to think that I tried my best at that time, always, which was my main goal was to be the best dad I could be. Oh, okay. I saw your hand up for a second. My main goal was to be the best dad I could be, and give my kids the stability that my dad gave me, even though he wasn't at home. But I always told myself, my goal is I will be home. My kids will always see me. I'm not the dad that's going to be out there, And with all of that being said, it's like everything came crashing down in the structure of my family. Things got just toxic. The dynamic wasn't working anymore between me and my kid's mother, and it became overwhelming. And towards the summer of 2019, things had just gotten bad. Everything was on the verge of ending between us, and I felt very like I had lost the one thing I've been working for all those years that initiated that sobriety.
Yeah.
Was gone. That's how I felt. It was like, that's it. My family's over. The money doesn't matter. The work doesn't matter. Those things come back. But the foundation of everything was built on, the family, is now over. And that made me extremely depressed. It was just, I felt like a failure. I was like, I fucked this all up. I destroyed everything, and even though we both had our mistakes, I that's how I looked at it. I fucked this all up. I fucking ruined everything. Everything went to shambles. This is horrible. And I felt like I lost purpose. Even while I had, 2 kids, I was very scared of losing everything I had worked for, from my family to my house, to just everything, and just seeing everything just taken. And it felt like it was. And I was living in fear of that in my head. I got to a point in October of 2019 that I went to work, and I told my boss, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't work. I can't even think. I can't be here. I operate heavy machinery, and mental distress like that, you just I was like, I can't do it anymore. And he was an amazing guy, and he was just like, go take time off, do what you have to do. And I kind of stayed at home, and things got worse. I drank more. I thought I was gonna take this time to get on my feet. I got this. I'm gonna wean off the alcohol. Everything's gonna be okay. Well, plus there was a nasty incident that happened at work where I got to work one day and I started having these hives blow up. I'm talking about the size 2-3 inch wide welts that have
Wow.
started to appear on my chest, on my neck, all over my body. I had these welts, and instantly I'm like, I know this is from the alcohol. My first instinct is I'm having a reaction to my liver not breaking down the alcohol properly.
Mm.
And I started to become very fearful at that time. As I get on my phone and start Googling stuff, about liver stuff, which I had done for years. I had known so much already from drinking and research, but I started to feel it and see it on my body this time. And I knew, okay, you're taking it further than you ever have in the past, pushing your body with the amount that you're drinking. And my reaction to that, which was, I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I knew I had to wean off alcohol properly or I could die, especially the amount that I was drinking. I left work that day. I went home and I took 2 Benadryl and drank vodka. And the welts went away, but I started to get this taste in the back of my throat that I researched that it just tasted like battery acid. It tasted like a chemical. And I'm like, where's this taste coming from? It's not anything I'm eating or ingesting. It's coming from inside. And that's when I knew my body was starting to shut down. And at home, as I thought I was going to be weaning off alcohol, I just drank more and more and more every single day. I slept most of the time. I wasn't even actually walking. I'd wake up and the withdrawal was so bad. I'd wake up, my heart would be a million miles an hour. I mean, so fast I couldn't breathe sometimes. I'd wake up and be like, talk about like sleeping, but getting no sleep. I'd wake up and just gasping for air sometimes. And the first thing I needed to do to stop my body in this distress and almost hyperventilating sometimes and shaking, was grab a fucking pint of vodka and I'd start chugging it first thing in the morning before even brushing my teeth. I chug this down, almost vomiting somewhat while trying to swallow it, and it's coming back up because my body's like, get this shit out of me. It's rejecting it, and I'm forcing it down to calm these symptoms that are occurring. And after a little bit of doing that, and I'd get down, I'd say about something like that, about a pint. Everything would calm down. Heart rate, cool. Thinking more organized now. Anxiety down. It's like the drunk man's clarity. And
Goes to show how much your body needed the alcohol, wasn't it?
yeah. Oh, it needed it. It.
How old was you here, mate?
This was 2019, so I was 35. Just turned 36.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was your partner drinking as well? Because you blame yourself for the breakdown of the relationship, but I think I heard at the beginning that you were both drinking. So
Yeah, she was drinking as well. We both drank a lot. And, you know, I take my responsibility for my end. I've learned that that's all I can kind of do. I think as a total, at the end of the relationship, the problems we had were definitely caused by both of us, and the dynamic that we had with alcohol. It was very just self-destructing to any kind of family and relationship. Um, so I take my responsibility for what had happened on that end. And then where things got scary was we had it was a nasty relationship where two people were drinking and didn't get along anymore, and felt victimized, and were coping with alcohol. And sometimes there'd be a good moment and a calm moment because you'd be drunk at the right moment, and then all it takes is like one person to be a little more drunk than the other, a little less drunk than the other, and then it's like everything's a disaster. um and everything just went downhill. But at 36, when I started to get sick like this, I started to get worried, and I didn't want to tell nobody about this. I talked to my super at work. He knew I was having problems drinking, but nothing in the way that what was really going on. And my mother knew about it. I'm very close with my mom, and my partner knew about it. And I just I didn't want to talk. I was very ashamed of myself. I felt disgusted with myself. Couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Um, and I don't know, I just didn't want to tell anybody to the extent of where I was with alcohol at that time, because I knew that I would have to face getting help. And I didn't want that shit. I wasn't, I didn't want to stop. As much as I kept saying, I'm like weaning off, it got to a very weird point where trying to wean became the reality of me trying to wean off became a illusion, where I started to become sick because my liver wasn't breaking down the alcohol. And when these toxins and things were building up, my belly was swelling. My belly was like the size of a beach ball. I couldn't even get up off the couch. I remember having to try to like swing myself up at one point just to get myself up off the couch. And I wasn't gaining weight necessarily like in my arms or legs. It was all massive belly swelling. Very, very painful, like
Mm.
it almost feels like you're pregnant.
Yeah,
If I
yeah.
that's how I felt. I'm like, it felt like that.
And yeah, and at that time, you know, didn't you, that you're in the shit.
Yeah, I knew
You
I was in
just
the shit.
know, and it's that sort of double-edged sword. Is like, is it too late? Have I gone too far for me to be like this? Then you drink
Not
off the back of that as well because you can't handle those feelings.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
So
exactly
at
how.
what point did it get to? I did. Did you have like an intervention or what happened then?
Um, there was no intervention. There was about 2 weeks before Christmas. I woke up one morning, and that's when it hit me. I looked in the mirror, and my eyes were yellow,
Mm.
and not a light yellow, not a little shade of yellow. They, in one night, went from white eyes to highlighter yellow.
Mm.
My eyes were glowing. I was like, holy shit, what the fuck happened? I almost fainted when I saw myself in the mirror. I started playing with the bulbs, like something's wrong with the lighting in
Yeah.
here. This is not real. And my heart was, I thought I was gonna fucking faint. I almost fainted when I saw myself. I'm like, that's when it hit me. I'm like, you're fucking dying. Here you are. Yes, you're dying now. Now you're dying. And I still, from what you said before, had this inner conflict of screaming, help, I need help, I want to stop this, I don't want this anymore. This was like a slow, painful, torturous death that I wouldn't wish on anybody. Like what I was doing to myself, you can't even come up with torture, with in your imagination from the things that were happening to my body. And I just kept inflicting more and more and more while knowing I'm doing this, wanting to stop, scared to actually get help, and scared to face all those demons that had just been packed away. Like I knew that it would only take full surrender for in this matter where I was, for anything to happen. And I think that where I was, I just felt so convinced. I felt convinced, like I'm gonna get myself off the alcohol. Okay, like when I saw my eyes yellow, I went on Amazon. This is crazy retarded. I went on Amazon and I go and I order a pack of liver cleanse pills, and they get over there the next day, and I start taking them, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna milk thistle. Let's make a whole little stir pot of great holistic medication that could actually maybe get my liver jumping in the right direction. And that wasn't, it was all lies to myself at the point where I was. And with my eyes yellow, I still continue drinking. And the only person that knew about my eyes being yellow was my partner. And like I had said, the relationship had become so toxic. We weren't talking, we weren't getting along. That even with her seeing me in that kind of distress, it was, she just left me alone. Also with me kind of requesting, so, like, leave me alone. And things got, this was right around towards Christmas time. She didn't want anybody. The problems we were having, she didn't want anybody at the house. We usually always have family over, and that, I don't know why. And another big problem that was just uncomfortable, which I'm sure a lot of people that are, we weren't married, but I'm sure a lot of people that are together face, is that when something like that happens and you're kind of in the process of splitting up and two people are drinking a lot, you got to sit there and like face each other every day. It's just an unhealthy environment. And it's a topic that's like hard to talk about, because I got to a point where my eyes were yellow, and I went from drinking to dying. And when I was on my couch, I was dying right around January 5th, 6th. I was dying on my couch. I wasn't getting up. I wasn't even able to get up for drinks anymore at that point. I was laying there. A couple of days before, my eyes had even become more yellow. My skin turned yellow. It was like a highlighter yellow. I had a bruise on the side of my body, right by my liver, that was probably the size of a fist. And I just, you could tell my liver was like shutting down. But I was very much like in a very dream, hallucinating state. I didn't know what was going on. At that point, I didn't even know I didn't know I was dying from drinking. I was like in this altered state of reality, starting to have trouble breathing, starting to feel my heart rate go from extremely fast and the withdrawals, to feeling like it was beating slower and slower. And there was no help called for me. I just laid there, and I laid there like that for 2 days. My kids, running around, my partner at the time walking around doing her thing, just kind of ignoring me, leaving me in my place.
So when you say there was no help called, do you mean she didn't ask for help, like get any medical help for you?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like in the state that I was in those 2 days, I was in this state of dying. I wasn't sitting there with a drink,
No.
eyes open. I was like spewing out the mouth black coffee grounds. I don't know if you've heard of this before.
I have, yeah.
But these black coffee grounds. I hadn't eaten in probably like a week. I hadn't used the bathroom in probably 2 weeks, neither one or number two. And these black coffee grounds, this vomiting was profusely coming, blood mixed in with it. Okay. And all of this happening. And, like I said, there was, I wasn't able to make any decision for myself in the state that I was in. I was not able to think clearly at that time. I was confused. I felt drunker than I had ever felt. It just, everything was foggy and didn't make sense, and I was confused. And little did I know that's what's happening is when your liver is failing and these toxins are going through your body, and the bile starts to build up, and the pneumonia levels start to build up in your brain because the toxins are going into your blood. You start to lose your mind. You start to actually hallucinate and see things and don't make sense. Your brain is now affected by all the toxins that your liver didn't break down from the alcohol. And my saving grace was my mother had noticed that I hadn't been on Facebook for 2 days. She noticed my messenger was off, and she reached out. She called the house to try to speak with my partner, and eventually got my son on the phone and said, "You better go get Mike on the phone right now to talk to me, and I need to hear his voice, or I'm calling 911. And you tell your mother that." And my son went, tried to do that, and said I couldn't talk. And then when my mom found out that news, and she had some kind of feeling that something bad was happening, she right away got my partner on the phone and said, "Get a fucking ambulance there now, or I'm fucking calling the cops, and this is going to be a big thing." And ambulance came. I remember laying on the floor and just taking these little gasps of air, like, and I really felt like at that moment I was like, I'm dying, in my head. I felt like I was dying. And still, even feeling like that, not even really being able to walk, laying flat, the paramedics get in there and they're like, "Let's go." And I'm like, "You're not taking me anywhere." Like I still mustered up energy to say no. I still argued to leave and said I was okay. And I looked at him and I'm like, "You can't just take me because I'm not okay. You know, I'm saying I'm okay, and unless I committed a crime, you can't take me. And I remember one paramedic looked at me and he's like, "Who's the president?" And I was so confused, and I said the wrong president. Uh, I said Barack Obama, and then he's like, "No," and now he's like, "So sorry to tell you, but we're taking you against your will." Um, I wasn't able to walk, and as they put me on something where they slid me out, and the last thing I remember was getting in the ambulance and just throwing up more and more and more of just blood everywhere. It was like uncontrollable vomiting, um, and that's it. They rushed me like that. That's all I remember. That from that moment when I got pulled out of the house. Oh.
Wow, mate. I mean, what brought you to my attention was the pictures of you in the hospital, and you did look like you was on the edge of death. Really disturbing to see, and all the symptoms that you talk about. How much was you actually drinking then per day to get to there?
I would at that point I was drinking like I'd get a 6 pack of twisted teas that I enjoyed. It was actually like the only alcohol that kind of seemed to taste okay. And I used to get a 1.75 liter bottle of Ciroc vodka. That used to be like my choice of vodka. And I believe it's 35% alcohol, right? So it's not like your full blown uh, other heavy hitters that aren't flavored. But for me, it was easier to get down. And out of that 1.75 liter bottle, I was probably drinking a liter out of that a day for I don't know, 6 months, five,
Do you-
6 months. Give or take a little bit. Some days more, some days less, but around there. About 750 mil to a liter. I was drinking a day.
Do you
It's
know
a
how
lot, right?
well, do you know what I is stirring up for me? I was drinking that for years.
Really,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. I would buy a litre of vodka because a bottle wouldn't be enough, and I felt worse that I drank a bottle. So for me, it was like, well, if I don't drink the litre, I've done well, and none of the science added up, Mike. Do you know what I mean? It was because I would
Yeah,
drink more than a bottle, so I don't know what I was doing, but there were days that I got up and the litre were gone in the morning. I didn't realise by the time I'd done the litre, I didn't realise I'd finished it. I just passed out. But
yeah,
if there was a little bit, and I kind of had my own sort of measure of what was left, if I was all right or not, but it would always be well over a bottle. But what scares me, or what makes me feel extremely lucky, is that I was doing that for years. And we can see what, a cumulative drinking did to you over 6 months. I just feel we're both bloody lucky, mate. Do you know what I mean? We're so lucky.
absolutely.
Um,
Very lucky.
so how long was you in hospital for?
I got into uh, Claremont Hospital January 7th, and right away when I got there, they put me in an induced coma, and I was in the hospital till the end of January. I want to say I think I went home January 30th, 31st.
And is
Uh,
this 2019?
this was 2020, walking
20?
into the and walking into the new year. Um, the first hospital I got to, it was a dangerous scenario for me because they had no liver specialist there, and they had me in a room with all these cameras, hooked up to different hospitals with other liver specialists that would watch me through a camera. And the induced coma, all that did was stop me from going into cardiac arrest because of the withdrawal and how my body was shutting down from the alcohol. And you know, the whole nine, a respirator, catheter, and all kinds of ends, and just painful. I can remember a lot of pain, even with all the drugs they had me on. You know, they induced my coma. I've went through all my medical work. They used fentanyl, and I remember so much pain, vivid pain where I couldn't even scream for the pain. But so yeah, I was in that coma, and I want to say I woke up January 27th, and I got transferred hospitals. I got very lucky. The hospital that I was in that didn't have a liver specialist, they told me, I mean, they told my mom, they told my whole family that there was nothing they could do. You know, I couldn't get a liver transplant because you need to be 6 months sober here in the States to qualify for a liver. So if you're dying from a failing liver because of alcohol, you're not going to get a liver. So as I was sick at that hospital, my stomach had continued to just swell. I forgot the medical term for it, but it's basically, even though they had bags hooked up to me everywhere, I wasn't still going to the bathroom. This massive swelling, just, you know, I'm laying there on a bed. I got to 268 pounds. I was like a Jabba the Hutt on the bed, and all kinds of things hooked up, feeding tube. It just holes everywhere that you could imagine. And by some very lucky odds, my godmother had known someone at the other hospital, at University Hospital, that knew there was a liver a whole hepatology department there, and they were able to transfer me over. And when I got over there, they did a procedure. They told my family I was gonna die. They're like, you know, the odds of him living are so slim. You know, my mother started to prepare for my funeral. She started to financially, everything that she could think of. There were some family members that had very much hope, and some that you know, were, from what the doctor said, the odds for me to come back from where I was at wasn't gonna really happen. They tried a procedure where they poked these holes in my stomach to relieve pressure, because I had fever, I had an infection going on, it was all kinds of things going on. I had this fungal infection from the hospital itself. It's just like a catastrophe. And they poked these holes in my stomach, and they basically drained me. They drained the fluids building up in my body. And in doing that, there were also talks about trying to cut me open to remove the fluids, but generally people don't survive that procedure. They bleed to death. It's just it doesn't work good. But when they did these holes, there was somewhat of a turnaround where my body, my liver didn't continue to get worse. It stopped. It just stabilized. And when it finally stabilized was, I guess, when some hope had, you know, come up by the doctors, but I was still asleep. I remember towards the end of January being woken up to have my respirator taken out. and I was still in like a dream state coming out of my coma. And let me tell you, talk about pain, like removing the respirator and then removing uh, a rectal catheter. Okay, like I say these things because they're no joke. Like this is a torturous experience that I had. I was handcuffed. I had bruises all over my arms because they had to handcuff me because of the pain. Even while I was asleep, I would rip out lines and rip out catheters and rip out things and harm myself in distress while in a coma. And when I woke up, I remember I was so thirsty. It was so thirsty. I didn't drink anything in almost a month. I was like, felt like there was sand in my mouth. And a nurse brought me ice cubes, and that morning they had offered me a lasagna, and I woke up in the most amazing spirits. I felt amazing, like at least inside, I felt great. I felt like I had come off. I felt rejuvenated. I don't know what it was. I felt like I had died and been reborn. It like I had opened my eyes, and everything I experienced in my sleep, I didn't process at that time. It was very much like I felt like I was awake, kind of asleep, and it was just not even worth processing that at that time. I just woke up with and embraced this feeling of refreshness that I had. I woke up smiling, basically, I think, in my head, like I felt amazing opening my eyes. It felt great. It was like a rebirth. That's the best way I could describe it. But when I woke up, they said, you're in big trouble, and we can't get you a new liver. Your liver is stabilized, and it's stopped getting worse. But where it's at is still, there's a scale they use here in America. It's called a Madre or Madri's effect number. It's like a score they give for your liver. I want to say like 48 is a high score of where there's liver failure, and I was at like 75. My morbid rate at that, that I saw in my hospital paperwork, was like 92% something, chance of death. I had like a very small chance of survival, but I didn't feel that way inside. I felt amazing. I was breathing, I was tasting, I was like experiencing these little things, just seeing, and the smells that I was having, and the tastes and the thoughts. It was like it was like the spark of brain activity again for me. It was like coming back into the world. So my spirits were like, great. I was like, great, I made it. You really fucked up this time, Mike, but you're here. I was close, and this one doctor, she was so amazing, and the nurses at this hospital that were taking care of me were all such amazing people. Those people go so unrecognized in the love and what they put into their work to save lives, even just taking care of people and keeping them in good spirits. They were amazing people there. And this one doctor, she kept telling me, you're okay, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna get better. And this other doctor came in from a different department, he was ID, which is he came over to this fungal thing that I had going on from a respirator. They thought there was something going on with my blood, and he came over and he's like, I don't know what she's telling you, but you're probably not going to live through this. I'm letting you know the reality that you're not getting a liver anytime soon, and you're nowhere out of the woods. Your liver's horrible, in a horrible state. And he's like, I'm being honest with you. I got really upset. I was like, why are you trying to upset me? I feel great. I was like, let's get the other doctor back in here. This is in their thoughts, and I still just stayed in good spirits. And what was crazy is I woke up and COVID just landed here. It was like my parents started coming to visit me, family, and they made them wear these robes and all types of stuff. And the dark side of what happened when I woke up, which I'd like to share, and I won't get too much into it, but the humbling experience of waking up and not being able to walk. Okay. It was hard just using my fingers when I woke up because I had been asleep for the amount of, 3 weeks, and I couldn't feed myself, and I couldn't feel my feet, and my feet looked like elephant trunks. They look like elephant feet. They were just like huge from all the water buildup, all the water retainment in my body. And I couldn't get up. I even went to try. I saw a falling hazard wristband on me. I went to try and nothing moved. It was like such an odd feeling. I'm like, it's so weird. I can't feel anything. And then a moment of realization comes when I eat my lasagna, and I'm like, wow, this is great. The lasagna is great. And then 5 seconds later, I'm like, I got to use the bathroom. And it's like, oh God, here I am, a young man, I'm 36 years old, and how embarrassing to have a group of nurses come try to pick you up, and take you to the bathroom where you could barely hold yourself up, even, to do what you got to do. It was very humbling. It was embarrassing, to say the least. And I asked my nurse, I'm like, what'd you guys do to me before you woke me up? And he said, he's like, because of the amount of toxins that were in your body and the bile buildup, we had to, we performed, I think it's like an enema. Like, he's like, we had to clean out everything there, get everything out that was built up there. And there was this medication called lactulose, and it's a kind of laxative. But what it does is you take it and it gets the toxins from your stomach, from your blood, and it gets everything to build up so you can release it through your body, by going to the bathroom, because your liver's not doing that work. So this medication, they'd give it to me, and instantly I'd have to go to the bathroom. Like, it was horrible. I remember I had a little patch on my back, and they would put the number of times I go to the bathroom to keep count. And I was just like, I think one day was like 28 times. And I'm like, people carrying me all 28 times, me hitting my button, praying people make it in time. As a young man going through this stuff, it's like, this is what I never thought I'd have these experiences. I was like, it was just so humbling. I just sat in my thoughts, facing what I had did, what I had went through, and full surrender. Like, help anyone who can help me. Please help me and guide me in whatever direction I need to go here. That's how I felt at that time. I felt, in full openness to everybody's opinion and how I could save my life and live.
Desperation, really, isn't it? It's like you got to a point, it's like, right, okay, like you fought to go into hospital, and now you were like, please help me. I'm in desperate need of your help now. So, Mike, honestly, I could talk to you for hours, but I always like to keep these like quite compact, and your story is so amazing. Let's start to bring it round to where you started to recover now and things got better for you?
So they sent me home from the hospital because of COVID. Within like 3 or 4 days of waking up, they were like, if you stay here, the odds of you surviving your immune system so low. If you get COVID, you're not going to survive. Your immune system won't be able to fight it. And they didn't know very much about it at the time. So they sent me home, and that's where my recovery process started. I had a nurse that would visit me once a week, and I had my mother who helped me, and my father and my two boys, my sons, who were amazing in my recovery. And they sent me home with a port. I had to they put a port in my arm, PICC line that ran to my heart, so that I could do my own IV infusions and medication treatment at the house by myself. And recovering, I had to do like 4 infusion treatments a day. I laid on my couch. It took me probably 3 to 4 weeks where I had a physical therapist coming by. I was walking again. My yellow skin started to like flake off. I was taking 16 different medications, different pills, starting to eat normal foods, and just walking again was amazing. Being able to take care of myself, where, before, people had to bring me little pee bottles, stuff, like those hospital things. And being able to get up and go use the bathroom. I had a walker. I went from a walker, and then I went to a cane, and it was like, in the whole process, I was smiling through all of this. It felt like I was a little kid learning everything again. It really was that, and I had that outlook. I had some frustrating moments in that. There were times I had issues with my IV, and it was a fight. Believe me, it was like a big fight getting through that recovery process. But I kept my head up. I'm like, how worse can it get? Look where I was, and I'm at least home, treating myself with some medication, eating and walking. So my spirits were just always so up. And this is where the story might get a little bit difficult. Like 4 months, it was probably 4 to 5 months after I learned all those things again, I recovered again. Like I fully, I didn't fully recover, but my liver was functioning again. Let's use that term, because that's what my doctor had told me. And in these 4 months, I was home just with my family because of the COVID pandemic. I was going through extreme mental, like, health issues, kind of not having any kind of social activity in my life, feeling in despair, but with a great outlook to the end result of my recovery, let's say, right? But I'm such like a high energy person. I always want stuff, and I want it now. And I remember, even at that time, I was so humbled by everything I had went through, and just the pressure in my head, which I gave myself, but just the pressure in my head, that when I started to think in my head, okay, I'm going to start, dating again. My skin had turned white. My eyes were white again, which doctors said could take 2-3 years to happen. But it miraculously, my liver took a turnaround that within 2 to 3 months, my eyes were white. And by 4 to 5 months, my liver was in stable function, full stable function on a blood test, clear reading. My liver worked like everybody else's. And when I heard that news, it was like news I had been dying to hear, right? I had been dying to hear for so long. And even at that time, And this is just how the way that my head was working and the pressure that I kind of felt like that I needed to get out and go back into society, meeting people. And I'm like, okay, my liver's functioning normally. Now I can go back and kind of go out and mingle socially. And in my head, I had already thought that the event was going to arise where I would be in a social setting, either meeting a woman or meeting friends, that I confronted in my head what decision I would make if I wanted to have one drink. And even after all I had been through, all I had experienced, and when the doctor said my liver was stable, but we don't know your result here, what's going to happen, if you're going to still die or not, if it's going to still go back worse, this can take a turnaround anytime. And I got into this like mode in my head where I was okay with confronting me having another drink again. And I thought that was insane. I thought it was like crazy. And I kept saying I wasn't scared to die, but I felt like it could possibly happen even at that point. And I went out and I had drinks. And it was a scary point for me and for my family. They were terrified. My mother was terrified. Like I can't even describe, how terrified my mother was for me. But I had felt like I could possibly die. And all those years that I spent drinking to like numb things, I was like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die doing what I want, having fun. And I went on to like this little toxic journey with alcohol again for a couple of months, like I'd say 2 or 3 months, and it was horrible. I started to like feel those symptoms, like the taste in my mouth, and all these things caught me. And I saw like how I felt like I was searching for myself, but I felt like at the same time, here I am self-destructing again. Here's everything like happening all over again. But I'm not depressed this time. I'm like, but I'm okay with life. Like I'm happy with life. But still, I've given myself a new set of circumstances in life where dealing with alcohol is not the same as it is for anybody under the health conditions I put myself through, those extremes. And it was crazy. I led that for a while. I had gotten in a relationship with somebody. I met someone at that time that I fell in love with, and that person didn't have alcohol in their life, and went through like a big change in that relationship where alcohol was cut out and taken out of the picture. I had stopped and just started living without it again. And it's like I don't know if you can relate to this, Dave, or how it is, because some people in my family, I've either family or friends or even strangers have said, how crazy could you be in the past to have even tried that again? Right? Like what? Like even to dabble in that. And I feel like there's this inner conflict sometimes of like a authority I feel in my life, or subject to feeling like I can't experience something like a rule, you know, like you will, okay, I've obviously accepted that alcohol is horrible in the terms of my life for health, for the destruction that it caused, the clarity that it takes away. Like I enjoy my sober self now so much. I've gotten to know this side of me that in the past, even when I've tried to have a drink in moderation, the way it makes me feel is almost guilty to the person I enjoy now, which is the sober me. And that was like another like thing to face. And I guess that's like something I feel like I'm gonna face for the rest of my life, is this sense of, can I accept that something is not good for me? I'm fully aware of that. And can I accept that it's just a better life without it? You know, 100% a better life. I feel so amazing without it. Can I be humble enough for the rest of my life to like say that that's going to be bad for me and I don't want to do it?
I think
You
the
know?
thing is, Mike, is that whole thing when you drank the second time, when you knew what it had done, you knew how it affected your family and whatever. Like people say, oh, fuck it, that kind of thing, right? But in essence, that's fuck me, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So when you look at it like that, you've got to look at how many people you're helping now with your story. And it's at this other end of the scale. I mean, a lot of people that listen to this podcast are grower drinkers. And, you know, I was more on your level, but I didn't reach the stage of you, you know, turning yellow, being in hospital, resuscitated and whatever. But, you know, I was hardcore. But I realized that when I stopped drinking, I realized that I was able to help others with my story and my experience. And that really pulled me along. And I'm at a state now, Mike, that I won't ever drink again because I realize how valuable my story is to others, but also how valuable I am to myself, right? And this is about you loving yourself enough to not do that again. You're a father, you're an amazing man, and you have so much humbleness and so much to give that no one listening to this will want to hear of this. You know, you go in there again. And I always believe it's about how we feel about ourselves, Mike. It's how we feel about our true selves. And you're enough, man. You're more than enough to do this. You really are. And you can keep on this straight. There's never a finish line ever. This is why we have to work so hard at it, you know. Sometimes daily, sometimes you can go a month and glide along and it's okay. But it's work. And that is why so many people struggle, because it's such an addictive drug. And it whispers in your ear, doesn't it? It, you know, like you, even after all that time, you're still rationalizing why you should have another drink and whatever. But for me, it's a non-negotiable that I just can't do that anymore because of the consequences. And that is how I've got through. And it's weighing up the odds, Mike. You're a dad as well, you know? And, but more importantly, it's like you're here, you're alive, you've escaped death. You're a lovely bloke, you know, and you shine the light, man, to so many people. But it's about you looking in the mirror at yourself and seeing that light and going, do you know what? I'm worth every single moment of this sobriety, this incredible escape.
Those were those were things that I faced along in that recovery process, was learning and going through in my head, like, am I, like, I'm worthy of this, right? I'm worthy of this other chance. I got to be worthy of it, right? I'm here. Um, when I woke up the next day, second day that I was at the hospital, Kobe Bryant had passed, and it shocked me. I was in my hospital bed, like, wow, look, like, I'm here alive, and this great man, great father, great family person, amazing person just passed. And I almost had a little bit of a guilty feeling, a little bit like, well, like, why am I here? Like, what, how could this happen? What am I doing here? Hanging out in this situation, cheating this uh situation that I got out of, like, and that was something that had come up while I was recovering, right? Was like, I started to a lot of people had started to do TikToks and stuff, but I didn't do that. I was just recording myself and getting to know myself again, like, talking to myself in the camera, building up self-esteem like that. It was like a therapy session, me and my phone, talking to myself and recording things. And it built to a point where, when I had went out drinking again after what had happened to me, and I was telling people what had happened to me, because I'm out socializing at that point, and I'm telling people, and they're like, "Holy shit!" And I see the looks on people's faces, and I'm like, "I was just in the coma 5 months ago, and
Mm.
here I am," And I see the looks on people's faces, and the way that their eyes kind of lit up when they heard what I had to say. And when I started to see that light and the response, and like the way that it changed someone's way of thinking, even if they didn't have anything that they were changing in their life, just the perspective I gave them of where I was at 5 months before stood with them. I know that story stood with them. And I started to feel power in my worthiness here. Like, this can help. This can change, like, this can maybe change someone's perspective, seeing me the way I was, and not getting to that point, because it's the truth that you start feeling those symptoms. It's like you're only lying to yourself when you keep going any further. The inevitable will come, where you're in that bed, and it's I've found a true meaning in my sense of humor from when I was, like, recovering. I started just having fun. I felt like, if I don't live, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna laugh, and with that, and then trying to put my story out there, I started to feel a sense of worth, and seeing that so many more people go through what I went through than I thought. There's been people that have sent me pictures of themselves with yellow eyes, and people that are in the hospital, and people that have lost family members in the same situation I was in, on such a higher level than I could ever imagine. Because the original thought to me here in America as a teenager, the worst thing that could come from alcohol was alcohol poisoning. And the second worst thing could be, liver failure, but after years and years and years and years of abuse, which at 36, I didn't feel like I wore that time out. And I never knew that I could just knock my liver completely out of the game and almost die, like, I don't feel like many people know that that's a possibility. They figure they'll just get sick and go get their stomach pumped, or it'll be alcohol poisoning, and you go get an IV, you're hydrated and you're better. It's not like that. You reach a point where your body, your liver shuts down, and so does every other organ behind it. I've just been really, really grateful, and happy to hear the positive things people have had to say about my experience. And um
you're amazing, mate. And you know, this is slightly longer than a lot of my podcasts, but your story is so important to hear. And I would love to round it off with where you are exactly now. And if you could give any advice to people who are struggling with their alcohol, is there anything you can say?
I would say to anybody who's having troubles with alcohol, which even to where I'm at now, to now I'm sober, but I face the same thoughts and rations that come up, especially when it comes to trying to be out there and trying to be social. It's just such a normal thing wherever you go, for Christ's sake. I mean, at least here in America, you get a glass of wine to sip on when you go to church on Sunday. You know, like when you go up to the altar and you take bread, it's like it's such a normal thing. And I know that, at least for myself, it makes me feel awkward sometimes. Like I can't partake in this massive social setting of like-minded people that maybe all don't have problems with this, and it feels like you're like a kid being left out. You know, at least that's the way my mentality works. But then I also know that it's such a setback mentally, spiritually, clarity wise. You know, like you build so much momentum when you're sober, and all the clarity and all the things that come into your life that are positive start flowing in. Even one time will make me feel setback. Like I'm like, damn, I took 50 steps forward, I just took 25 back. But I do also give myself grace. I don't beat myself up, because I can't victimize myself to my own trauma. That's how I feel. It's like, okay, I make a mistake, I need to fucking stop again, put myself back in perspective, and get back to the mentality of, this is only going to make things worse. This isn't going to help any situation whatsoever, no matter how I rationalize that it may increase the level of how I enjoy a social setting. It's not going to, no matter how much you lie to yourself. And I would say to people, you know, like, face yourself when you're there full of anxiety and shaking and in disparity, looking for something to cure that. Soak in the feelings of that. Go through those feelings, you know, cry and scream and let it out, or go to a gym, go for a walk, let it out in a positive manner of coping. And for anyone who doesn't stop drinking, don't use drinking as like a coping mechanism. If you drink when you're upset, you're tending to a habit of, when you're upset, you're gonna need a drink, you know. And just have
Drink,
grace for you.
yeah,
Go ahead.
have grace. I mean, people don't just drink when they're upset; they drink when they're happy. The
Mm-hmm.
reward, isn't it? You know, like it. There's so many excuses and reasons we use for drinking: commiserate, you know, grieving, celebrating, good day, bad day. You know,
Yeah.
Mike, and you'll have to wrap it up, man. But keep on doing what you're doing, mate. Every single day, one day at a time. I have so much respect for you, and I I think you're amazing. I really do. I mean that with all my heart.
Thank you,
Um,
Dave. You're amazing too, man. Yeah, I appreciate you very much, and I enjoy watching your videos and your posts, and I appreciate everything you're doing. And Sarah too. You know, Sarah's a amazing person, and her story is amazing.
mm.
Um,
We're all
these,
amazing. I mean, when you look around, this is why I love the community. And it's important to say, you know, what you said earlier about what to do. It's also connection is so important. I believe that. And it's how we've chatted today, how all the thousands of people will be listening to you today and remember your story and follow you and wish you all the very best. A connection is a huge part, you know. And all in our own way, whatever we do to beat this terrible drug is amazing. And you know, one day I just hope that with our banging the drum, more and more people will see the light around what this is. A bit like smoking, where, you know, you say you don't smoke now and no one bats an eyelid. You say you don't drink and it's like, what? What's wrong? What's the matter with you? You know, we're
Absolutely.
really going to change that. And I think, you know, collaboratively we can. Thank you, Mike, so much, mate, for joining me today. Let's stay in touch, my brother. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave. And one thing with this last is, like you said, we are all amazing. I think everybody that's alive, you know, like especially in the people that have faced hardships with addiction and mental health. Because people tell me all the time, like they say this, you're a miracle, and you know, like what you went through is a miracle. And I just feel like we all are. We have all, like, there's nothing special about me. We're all walking miracles that, you know, are contributing to the push of bettering people and kind of getting rid of what's slowly killing a lot of people that no one talks about, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's
thank you
why
very much, Dave.
it's my pleasure, mate. And that's why we need to keep talking. You stay strong, Mikey boy.
You too, Dave. Thank you very much.
See
Be
you
good.
soon,
God
mate.
bless. Take care, brother.
Bye, mate.